Tell me something you've learned recently. Give me some, like, your newest learning.
So I have a co-investor, and he comes from the retail operations world, right? So he took that job I interviewed for
With
20 years earlier
Jay
with
Baker?
Casual Meal. Not that specific job, but
Oh,
that's the route he went.
okay.
And as one of my partners in this business, one of my co-investors, I'm bringing sort of the whole retail perspective from a LP asset protection background. He's bringing it from the pure retail ops, human resource, merchandising, and I'm learning more from this guy on a daily basis. Um, in some respects, that job that I interviewed for would have been probably very interesting, and could have been a career unto itself. I
Yeah.
have no regrets, but so the fact that I have a partner that was a completely different background than me, and I'm able to pick up things that we can then both apply to the business we're trying to build today. And because of that relationship with him, we are pursuing aggressively, services in the retail sector, services in the pharmaceutical sector, and services in the cannabis sector, where it's an emerging sector. It's got lots of challenges. We're doing it on a very small scale, and we're doing it through a separate DBA that's not connected to the retail side. So I couldn't do this without his expertise, because he's been exploring that sector for some time, and he's bringing a lot of his background to bear on this new opportunity. The other thing that we did in June is I went back to my good friend Jim Lee and Kevin McMenamin, and as you know, we acquired the media group, which has been rebranded Learn It Media Solutions. And again, there's a business that I had not historically been involved in that produces some incredible products. And I've been recently traveling with Kevin McMenamin and watching him sell this business. I mean, we're doing some really interesting stuff on workplace violence, DE&I, active shooter, the challenges of the modern retail workspace, and applying that to these other sectors is just like, I think the fact that every day I'm learning more stuff, it never stops, right, Stephanie?
Right.
And
Yeah.
a good entrepreneur is a lifetime learner.
Yep.
Building great teams, lifetime learners, and you always have to be curious, right? I am applying through the School of Hard Knocks all the things I learned about managing a good business, managing cash, managing relationships, having a banking relationship, those tactical things, having outside accountants support my other efforts. Potentially, how do I grow to the next level? I'm always talking to other entrepreneurs, other business executives, and I'll start with asking them the question with, hey, I got this wrong. What would you have done differently? And they're almost always willing to share with you thoughts and ideas. So I love that part. That's what you ask why. Well, that's why I'm doing it, because I'm only going to get so good of a golfer, and I'm mediocre at best. and I feel like I'm pretty good at this piece and getting better. And but I don't have the same stress. Stress that I had when I ran LP Innovations. So I'm enjoying it, and we're making mistakes, but we're doing some really good things. But there'll be no fatal flaws, no fatal mistakes. But we are risking it. We're risking real personal wealth, and that we hope will turn out to be very successful. But the one thing that you have to, I have. Because of the business I was in, I was able to deal with other businesses overseas. And there's nothing like the entrepreneurial spirit in this country. The can-do, positive attitude to go out and try something is just incredible. I think that's what separates us, quite frankly, from any other country, is everyday people with a good idea aren't afraid to take a risk and swing for the fence. But you got to
Absolutely.
be a bit of a risk taker, and not everybody's comfortable being a risk taker.
I
I know
think
you. I
you
know
said
that
talk
you
about
jumped out there. It's not comfortable.
yeah. Absolutely. There's been some risk taken in my career, but I was thinking about risk taking. It's a lot of it too is just picking up the phone and calling people when you don't know the answer, right? And I think that's really out of the comfort zone, especially for someone, let's say, who's been in LP or AP for a few years, and they're comfortable and they're very knowledgeable in their skill set. Like that's really hard to then say, okay, I'm a learner now.
It is this. Some people struggle. So I know some folks like take Mark Stindy. He's worked both sides very successfully, right?
Right.
He's made that jump. You've made that jump. I've made it.
Mhm.
It's I think some LP folks are by nature conservative and risk averse. I think
Mhm.
that if there was a profile of our profession, that probably would hold true. But but there are enough successful exceptions to show that if you really have that bug, that scratch, you can itch it.
Mhm.
If you have that itch, you can scratch it. You want to delete that part, right? You get that
Yeah,
one. Let's
what
bring the
time is
time
it?
down. It is 1:48, and it's
1:48.
an itch I want to scratch, not a scratch I want to itch. Um, so, but it's not common, right, Stephanie? It's not.
It
It's
isn't.
I think for other professions, which by nature are more risk taking, maybe it lends itself. I don't know, but the ones that have made it, I think are they're people that sort of it's part of their DNA,
Mhm.
and they were kind of like me. They got complacent. What do I do next? How do I keep setting new goals?
Right.
Um, and I, we there's I know you and I can rattle off a list of tons of folks that have done it quite successfully, and I
Mhm.
admire their careers. The other thing I think, Stephanie, both you and I are guilty of is, we're collectors. Do you know what I mean? Collectors.
I think
We're
so. Talking
we're
about
collectors of
connections?
people.
Yeah.
We collect relationships. I have relationships that I've so value, including my relationship with you,
Oh.
and Wayne, and Shane and Dave, and
Mhm.
oh my goodness. So we were just at the LP Foundation LP Media event that you LP magazine that you hosted, and it was a great 2-day event. And I the day of the Tuesday night, the dinner, I was at a table having dinner, and Doug Doug Wicklander was there. It was great. And
Right.
early in the night, I was hanging out with Jim Lee. And then afterwards, we all got together for a drink or two, and because the weather was beautiful on an
Mhm.
outside patio. And who was sitting there besides? There was me, there was you, there was Wayne, there was Eric Hutchinson, Walter Palmer, Paul Jones, Mark Stindy, Dave Johnston, Cedar came by,
Chad
Chris came by,
Chad
Steve
McIntosh.
Longo was there. Did I say
Yeah.
Walter Palmer?
Yeah. Chad McIntosh was
Yeah,
there. Yeah.
McIntosh. I mean, just the most wonderful people that I have had uh, the pleasure of having both a professional and personal relationship with him. When Paul Jones was telling stories about some of the guys I hired from him 30 years ago, who are like Mike Marquis and Dave Johnson, who are my friends, and when Mark and him were telling stories, it was such. We weren't talking shop as much as sharing experiences.
Yeah.
They have had such an incredible, without knowing it, incredible impact on me professionally. All of those folks, as well as personally. And I do the cliche: you stand on the shoulders of others. You really do. You
Right.
don't get here without collecting those relationships and valuing those relationships. And if you might not see those folks for a year, but when you see them, you pick up where you left off.
Right.
Like there's been no time in between. And when we were sharing that night, it was not just about what we do, it's about who we are, what
Mhm.
we want, what's going on in our lives. And I
And it
put
was
so
fun.
much value in that today. It was just a really good time.
Mhm.
The event was excellent. But I realized I wouldn't be here without all of those relationships. Now I collect them. I don't know if they always collect me, but I value them. So I hope they value my relationship. But I can't tell you how much I've learned from
Right.
every one of those folks and what an impact it's had on my life.
Absolutely.
And some have that entrepreneurial spirit, but some have these incredibly successful careers that I just admire. Like they've stayed on the asset protection side, and just phenomenal people, highly intelligent, that have really, if you, what's that, self-actualization? If you find what you're really great at and you love it, stick with it.
Right.
And if you have that entrepreneurial itch, scratch it.
Scratch it.
And
And
so,
I'm a big fan of surrounding yourself with smart people too, right? Like not even just your own internal team, but who do you associate with? Like, and I'm not saying you need to be, elitist or anything, but surround yourself with people that you get something from, that they're either you get something from their energy or their intellectualism or their, they offer something, right? I've always tried to like gravitate towards, or I do just naturally gravitate towards people that I like. I want to talk to people who, they offer something, if that makes sense.
absolutely. But
Yeah,
doesn't that make your life so much more
it
rewarding?
does. Yeah.
It really is. So I have a different role today in this new entity. It's called Sim Holdings, with these four different businesses, unique businesses.
Mhm.
But I don't run that business on a day. That business is run by Kevin O'Brien. It's run by Matt Murphy. These are folks I've known 20, 30 years that are just incredible, smart, dedicated people, but just awesome human beings.
Right.
And they know a lot more about certain things than I know. And I think that the really to be, not only to enjoy it and be a good leader, is recognize that, move out of their way, give them
Hmm.
room to breathe and grow, make a couple of mistakes, and realize that you're learning from them almost every day as much as they're learning from you. So it's so I'm glad I'm back at it.
Good.
There is an element of risk that I'm hoping I don't get wrong, but it's not for the money. It is the money's at risk, but the reward is not financial. Now, listen, I'm a capitalist, so if we build something and someday somebody comes and knock it and wants to pay you a premium, then they're going to pay top dollar.
Hmm.
That's the way the system works, and I'm a firm believer in maximizing value. But it's the challenge of bringing a group of people together and really trying to take advantage of a market opportunity, and do it like it's that team approach. It is nothing like it, right?
Right.
We're all battling together, respecting each other, enjoying each other's company, and it's about, again, a win, right? We're
Hmm.
in this to win, and that does, my competitive spirit kind of helps get the juices
Yeah.
going. So.
How do you guys celebrate a win?
So we do it as a team, right? I like the people that help lead the win, celebrate it, like call it out. I learned years ago when I was doing LPI, when you give folks that kind of responsibility and they do something exceptional, I've seen so many um, other leaders always sort of dominate a conversation in terms of, look what I did, look what,
Hmm.
they help facilitate this, and they help. Now just sit back, turn off, and let people talk about their successes and what they've done for the business, because then they become emotionally attached and stakeholders. I love it. Kevin recently had uh, uh, both Kevin O'Brien and Kevin McMenamin have had some great wins in terms of customer relationships with tremendous customer feedback.
Hmm.
And I won't say what customers, just because I don't have permission,
Sure.
and it's really their relationships. And it's their job to talk about it. It's their job to tell everybody what went right. How did we get here? What were the successes? Where were the pivot points?
Hmm.
What did we do? Where did we have to sort of have an inflection moment and look at what we were doing and take a different direction? So I love it when people, we can celebrate others in the business,
Isn't
and
that?
it's really not about me.
Yeah.
But in the beginning, Stephanie, I had to learn that. Like, it
Right.
wasn't.
You had to get some
you know,
smackdowns.
yeah, I had to learn it. And I had to be, I had a consultant come in when the business LPI was owned by Jay Baker, and then
Mhm.
it was spun off. It went into bankruptcy, and we were spun off and bought by one of my customers, a retailer, by a private equity group. And I thought I knew everything, right? I thought I was a know-it-all, and they're like, okay, listen, we're shutting your cash off, right? I'm like, what do you mean you're shutting my cash off? We're not your bank anymore. You got to self-fund. I'm like, self-fund? What does that even mean? So they're like, exactly, exactly. Because when my old boss, Alan, was there, he funded our operations and our growth, and
Mhm.
it was an easy way to grow. But once that acquisition and transaction happened, I had new partners and they had a wholly different approach. And they had an approach, by the way, that forced me to learn. And they brought in a consultant. And
Mhm.
boy, did I despise this guy. I just absolutely, who is he to tell me what to do? And I ripped into him, and
Yeah.
he would say, you just don't even know what you're talking about. And it took that difficult relationship for me to learn. I was like, oh my goodness, this guy's right. I,
Mhm.
if I am to live on my own, this is what I have to be managing. There was so much missing in my education as a business leader, and I had to buckle down for a couple years and really go outside to everybody I could possibly talk to, including this consultant who was ended up becoming a valued mentor to the day he died, and he died much too young. But he a very successful businessman. And then towards the end, I actually and I said, well, I said, why did you put up with my nonsense? Why didn't you just kick me to the curb and get somebody smarter? He says, because you couldn't fake passion. He said, and I was you. He says, you just have to learn.
Right.
And I felt like you were going to come around and have some humility and through the school of hard knocks, get better at it. And he said, Stephen, I could now take you to any troubled business that I'm working with, and I could bring you in there to help right that ship. And
Mhm.
think about where you came from to that statement, 8 years later. I kept him on as one of paid board members at LPI. I kept
Mhm.
him on till he passed. And he to the bitter end, our very last board meeting, he was, kicking me in the backside about something I don't want to start discuss on this call, but he never let me off the hook. But I cared for him deeply, and we became very close personal friends. His
So
name
do
is,
you?
by the way, his name was Stuart Cohen, and
Oh,
and
sure. Okay.
he's
Yeah.
well known in the factoring industry, in the lending
Mhm.
industry. He would provide capital to retailers against their inventory,
Mhm.
and he made a really good business. But boy, was it a difficult relationship, and did I learn a lot. I learned a lot from Alan Weinstein, my old boss, the CEO,
Mhm.
and then I learned quite a bit more during those 20 years from Stuart. So
I think it's really important to not surround yourself with yes men, right? And to have people like that who are willing to stand up to you and say, "Hey, listen, I don't think what you're doing is the right way," or and you as an entrepreneur need to be able to have those people around. Like that can be hard sometimes, because
yes,
it could be friction can be uncomfortable and confrontation can be uncomfortable. But if you're going to be successful, not just as an entrepreneur, but in any business endeavor, you got to be able to open yourself up to that experience.
that's 100% true. Stuart taught me that lesson, of course, the hard way,
Mm-hmm.
by beating it into my head. So he helped me set up rules. So we had John Fleiss was our head of operations, and I had Doug Lowy was my CFO at the time,
Mm-hmm.
and he said, Steve, you got to delegate all these responsibilities, and your job, quite frankly, is let them make those decisions every day. And unless there's a conflict between them, you come in and referee, and if you can't resolve it, make the final decision. But and you have to live by that practice. And so I had to give up control to really gain control of the overall business. And I remember distinctly John Feiss one day coming to me. He was bullshit at me, excuse my language, that I was making a decision that was contrary to what he wanted to do. And it's like, that's my call, not yours.
Mm-hmm.
I looked at him, I was like, you know what? That's 100% correct. That's your call.
Right.
And I disagreed with it, but I had to back, and he was right. He was correct. But yes, Stuart said, listen, if you have a bunch of people that only agree with what you say, you're all
Mm-hmm.
going to march off the cliff together. And you'll
Right.
all sing Kumbaya on the way down, but you're going to crash at the bottom. He said, as uncomfortable it is, you want people that will get in your face professionally and disagree with you. And you have to create an environment that's okay.
Right.
Because if you don't, you will all march off the cliff together.
Right.
Very
Very good.
important for new entrepreneurs, especially when they start small and there's
Mm-hmm.
only a couple of people, is to used to having it your own way all the time and always making every decision.
Right.
And you very quickly have to give up control. If Stefanie, which you and I both believe in, you hire the smartest people possible, you have to get out of their way.
Mm-hmm. It's actually rather fun when you have that team in place, and then you can sit back and we talked about the successes. You're sort of just observing the team doing great things, and you just feel proud. Like I don't know, to me that's a great moment when you can sit back and sort of like give up that control a little bit to the team. I can imagine as an entrepreneur, you're looking at what you built, kind of sitting back and like, wow, this is pretty awesome. I don't know, that those are good moments.
Those are great moments.
Yeah.
I look at the people that have been part of my life when I was director of LPI, director of LP at J. Baker, and then at LPI, to today. And many have gone on to other, like yourself, on great things, have grown professionally. And I take a little sense of pride in that. Not that I was the main reason, it was inside of them, but if I was somehow contributed in even a very small way to their success, that feels wonderful. To this day, with the team that's really running the new company, they've grown into that role, and if I've had some little contribution to get them there, or however, it feels wonderful to see the growth. I mean, look at the folks that with Mike Marquis, successful career, Jim Matz, great career, Dave Johnston, great career, now at the NRF. It's Charlie, there's so many people, I can't name them all, right? But
Right.
all those folks that I've helped grow and they've helped me grow. And yeah, it feels really good. And then the people I've the people like Chad and Paul and Mark that, have had these amazing careers, in Jim Lee, like it's the impact they have on you is incredible. And to think that sometimes they were my customer and I work for them. No question, they're my customer. I'm working for them.
Mm-hmm.
They've had an incredible impact on my ability to grow as an entrepreneur. And my toughest customers, I'm not saying those folks were some of them, but they could have been. My toughest customers made us a better business.
Absolutely.
You had to earn their trust every single day. And the ones that pushed the hardest made you a better business. It was easy sometimes to resent it, but in the end, it's like bitter medicine. It's the best thing for you.
Absolutely. There's really no growth without adversity, right?
None. No.
Yep. So, okay, we've talked for a while here, and I want to sort of bring us full circle and wrap it up. What would you say? Think of one piece of advice. I know it's going to be hard for you, Stephen, because you're a man of many words, but think of one piece of advice to somebody who is considering going out on their own, like they're at an LP job right now, and they're like a week away from making the move. What would that one piece of advice be?
So I go back to perseverance, right? Never give up. So there'll be good times and bad times. So first of all, take the leap. Take the leap. If you feel it and you're really attached to it and you think this is important and you want to challenge yourself, please take the leap. It'll be uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
You'll be insecure about it, but it'll be rewarding. You will have, for every success, you'll probably have a couple failures. Your failures will You'll have more failures than successes, but always persevere. And again, I'm a broken record. Hire the best people possible. They'll make you look smarter.
Right.
And be humble, right? No, you're never the smartest person in the room. There's always somebody smarter, and learn. Be a lifetime learner. So those are a couple broad things, but perseverance, because sometimes you'll feel beat down. Sometimes you'll be like, I'm at the end of my rope.
Why did I do this?
Yes, yes. And you got to hang in there. I'm not saying be foolish to the point that you bankrupt yourself, right? You have to be intelligent financially. You have to have good tactical business decisions. You have to be able to fund payroll. But assuming all those things are being managed, just persevere and as you face those adversities. And over time, you will succeed.
Great. Awesome advice. Couldn't agree more. And Stephen, like you're like the OG entrepreneur in my book. Just so you
I'll
know.
take the entrepreneur. You can have the old guy thing, though.
No, OG, original gangster.
I'm like, OG. And, I'm happy to be 62 years old. And I hope to be bugging you guys for many more years to come.
Yes, you will, I'm sure. In fact, I would love to have you back for another episode of a podcast, because there's lots of things we didn't talk about that I would love to talk with you about. That would be great. So thank you again for joining me, Stephen, and good luck to you in your new adventure, and much success.
Thank you so much. I enjoyed it, by the way.
Great.
And sorry I talked too much.
No problem, Stephen. Thanks.